This is G.A. Ghansham welcoming you all on a very important event today, which is going to be chaired by Dr. Murli Krishnan, who is right away from Kerala. The Master of Ceremonies of is Dr. Lieutenant Indrani Emma from Mysuru, and the resource person of today's event is Dr. Ashok Sachdeva from Indore. iSpell is committed to facilitate and elevate people and bring the fraternity together to come on a particular platform, on an individual platform like iSpell, and share their experiences, talents, everything with the fraternity. So for today's event, we have with us Lieutenant Dr. Indrani MR as the Master of Ceremonies. Dr. Indrani is Assistant Professor of English and Associate NCC Officer at SBRR Maharaja First Grade College, Mysuru. She has 18 years of extensive experience in teaching English language and literature, and her area of interest includes travel literature and soft skills. Dr. Indrani is a trained soft skill trainer, and she has published many papers in the national and international journals and also presented many papers in these conferences. She has delivered nearly 100 lectures at various platforms on various topics as a resource person. She has received many awards in NCC, and she is the only female who has been awarded as the best NCC officer in Karnataka and Goa Directorate. So we have a very versatile kind of a personality in the form of Dr. Indrani MR, who is going to lead us towards the end of the session, and we are going to sail with Dr. Indrani, who is the captain of our ship for today. It's over to Dr. Indrani now. Dr. Indrani, the stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I extend a warm welcome to everyone present over here. And it gives me immense pleasure to be a part of this iSpell group. And to be a part of this is really a boon, I consider, because when we speak about English literature and the platform to elevate all these things and literary aspects, this gives me immense pleasure, sir. So thank you so much, sir. And today's topic is on psychoanalysis of some major literary characters. I would like to just speak few points about it. Psychoanalysis is a literary theory in which the concept or form is influenced by the tradition of psychoanalysis begun by Sigmund Freud. This analytical reading has been practiced since the early development of psychoanalysis itself and has developed into a heterogeneous interpretive tradition. As Clinic Supernaut writes, I quote, "Psychoanalytic literary criticism does not constitute a unified field. However, all variants endorse, at least to a certain degree, the idea that literature is fundamentally entwined with the psyche." I unquote. The object of the psychoanalytical character would be thrown light more by the chief speaker of today's webinar, and where this is a practice since the early development, where it speaks about the closely following an analytical interpretive process discussed in Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams and Other Works, where critics may view the fictional characters as psychological case studies attempting to identify such Freudian concepts as the Oedipus complex, Freudian slip, ego and superego, and so on, and demonstrate how they influence the thoughts and behaviors of fictional characters. However, more complex variants of psychoanalytical criticism are possible. The concept of psychoanalysis can be deployed with reference to the narrative or poetic structure itself without requiring access to the authorial psyche, and interpretation motivated by a French psychoanalyst Jacob Lacan's remarks that, I quote, "The unconscious is structured like a language," unquote, or the founding text of psychoanalysis may themselves be treated as literature and reread for the light cast by their formal qualities on their theoretical countries or the archaeological narratives on which he was so fond. Like all forms of literary criticism, even psychoanalysis criticism can yield useful clues to sometimes baffling symbols, actions, and setting in a literary work. However, like all forms of literary criticism, it has its limit. For one thing, some critics rely on psychocriticism as one-size-fits-all approach. So with these few words, where to put it across that we have to make the present is over here to understand that several important essays on literature which has been explored to the psyche of authors and characters to explain narrative mysteries and to develop new concept of psychoanalysis is the motto today to have a guest speaker who is along with us. Sir, I extend a warm welcome to you. Before that, I want the participants over here to know about Dr. Ashok Sachdev, who is the chief speaker of today's webinar. Sir is a professor of English at Mata Jijabai Government Girls PG College, Indore, and faculty at Department of Languages, Devi Ahilya University, Indore. Sir has put in 35 years of teaching experience in PG and postgraduate and undergraduate colleges. Sir has guided as a research guide. He has supervised around 20 scholars who have been awarded under his supervision. I feel very happy and to see the profile, and it was quite shocking for me when Sir sent me this profile, which has a great credentials, where Sir was the ex-Vice Chancellor nominee in the year 2015 and 18, and also ex-Chairman in Board of Studies in English, Devi Ahilya University, Indore in the year 2000 from 2006 and 9. Sir is a member of RAC Board Indore University since 2019 till 2019 and 2012 and 19. And Sir is a member of Central Board of Studies English, Government of MP, Madhya Pradesh, Bhopal. He is a member and Board of Studies in Christian Eminent College, Kasturba Agram University, Abdul Kalam University, etc. He is a principal investigator in UGC major research project since 2011 to 14. Sir is a PhD external examiner, subject expert and visiting professor in universities at Jabalpur, Nagpur, Gwalior, Jhansi, Ujjain, Raipur, Bilaspur, and etc. Sir has chaired many sessions in international conferences in University of Manchester, UK, University of Toronto, University of London, USA, University of Cape Town, and the list goes on and on, sir. We are proud to have you here, sir. Along with this, we have many such contributions which Sir has rendered towards the Department of English, where he has been invited as a plenary and keynote speaker in many international conferences in India. He has 30 research papers and articles published, and he has edited 4 books which have been published in Hindi Granth Academy at college level, and on one on translation, poetry, Web of Times. Sir is a resource person at refresher courses in University of Mumbai, Devi Ahilya University, Central University, Bilaspur, etc. for college teachers. Hello, sir. Sir, are you not able to hear me? I'm sorry. And on this, being a subject expert and selection of lecturers and professors of college and teachers, member of college inspection committees, convener of legal cell of government, higher education, convener of personality development cell of higher education. Sir has extensive and scholarly credentials to his account. Sir, on this occasion, I extend a warm welcome to you and to extend your presentation. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
The master of the ceremony today is master of the ceremony today, Lieutenant Indrani Imma. Our chairperson.
Hi, sir. I would like to introduce even Chairperson Sue too, sir.
Yeah.
I just need another second. Yeah.
Dr. Indrani, you can introduce the chairperson later on when you call him for the remark.
Okay, fine, sir. Fine. Thank you so much, sir. And I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. And now the session is open for you, sir. Please do carry on, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Lieutenant Indrani Imma.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, sir.
Chairperson, Dr. Murli Krishnan, and our dear friend, Dr. J. Ghansham, and the president of ISPEL, Dr. Jyoti Patil. I'm really delighted to be here this evening, and it's a matter of great pride and pleasure for me that on the platform where last week stalwarts like Bill Ashok spoke, and soon after this Sunday, I have been given this opportunity to speak. The area that I have chosen is the psychoanalysis of the major literary characters. Actually, this field is very challenging. Psychoanalysis is not an easy thing to delve into. It's my maiden attempt into this area of literature, and I have ventured into discussing this topic. So let me see if I can do justice with the topic, because justice can't be done because of its vastness, and the vast ocean of knowledge is there in this area. So I begin with my presentation, and I'm sharing the screen with you. Here I go, and as you can see, the screen is right there before you, and you can see the photograph of the Hitler. Ghansham sir jokingly said, Dr. Ghansham sir is a very sweet person, but he just made a humor out of this, that it is his picture. I appreciate his sense of humor, but you can see that psychoanalysis, nowadays we can see that the Oedipal studies based on Oedipus complex, Electra complex, and the various psychoanalysis are being taken over replaced by another theory, and that is the theory of narcissism. So we have to see that there are many people who are narcissists, and narcissism is another emerging area of this recent psychoanalytical approaches. And after the narcissism, we have sociopath, and we have psychopath, and we have various other kinds of so our literature is full of such characters where we can see that the characters are either narcissist, or they are sociopath, or psychopath. Lately, nowadays, you can see in the film adaptations of literature, you can see many web series and movies on OTT platform, which most of them focus on such characters which are sociopath and psychopath and narcissist. So, as we can see that another web series like Breathe Into the Shadows, we have a character, the protagonist, who suffers from a bipolar disorder, BPD, or NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and therefore the whole series runs according to that. And then there is Mirzapur also focuses on a character who is narcissist, and the children of the narcissist, his son, becomes a psychopath and sociopath and cold-blooded murderer. So there are plenty of such series which we can say, even the hostages, even the various which are being shown on the OTT platforms like Netflix and others. Let us see in literature. In literature, there have been many. First of all, I can see, we can remember that the D.H. Lawrence, Sons and Lovers, you can see, the Gertrude Morrell is a great narcissist. And therefore you can see that her son also suffers from the various psychological problems, that he is a narcissist too. And he becomes a person with bipolar disorder, and he suffers from dilemma and various other features. Then we have the picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Dorian Gray, who is the most famous narcissist in Victorian literature, is ruthless and self-centered and is very much like Narcissus. Actually, the Narcissus was a character in Greek mythology that the word Narcissism originates from. Another literary work is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. J. Gatsby is a pathological narcissist. To a pathological narcissist, during the course of discussion, I would call him Narc, N-A-R-C, Narc, pathological narcissist, based on his grandiose lies, sense of entitlement, and exploitative treatment of women. He also believes himself to be perfect. So we have several such examples in literature. And then we can see that White Hollander by Janet Fitch. Ingrid, the mother of Esther, is a textbook narcissist. She exhibits many of the behaviors associated with narcissistic personality disorder. She is self-centered, lacks empathy, is highly manipulative and has a sense of entitlement with no regard to how it affects her child. So literature is, then we have, you might have heard about Euripides, Media 431 BC and Ovid Metamorphosis 8 AD. Actually, originally meaning sleep or numbness, which refers perfectly to the emotional capacity of narcissist. The Narcissus myth is the origin of the term narcissism, now referring to a fixation with oneself. You might have heard about mother fixation, father fixation, is a fixation with oneself. In Metamorphosis, Ovid presents a Narcissus renowned for his beauty. The son of a river god and a nymph, he is also exceptionally proud and disdainful of those who love. Nemesis, the spirit of divine retribution, notices this and attracts Narcissus to a pool where he sees his own reflection in the water and not realizing it's an image, and he falls in love with his own image as the Greek myth goes by. So we are just exploring the origin also. Now, myth and reality of narcissism. Falling in love by one's image in the myth of Narcissus is seen to be a form of punishment for being incapable of loving. As you see, the biggest quality of narcissism is that they are incapable of loving, incapacitated, and they are not capable of loving or receiving love, giving or receiving love. If Narcissus could say, I love you, Eco would repeat these words, said Narcissus would feel loved. The inability to say these words identifies the narcissist. But there are myriads of manifestations, myriads of forms and types that go into the making of narcissism. So let me define you what narcissism is. It's the pursuit of gratification from vanity or egotistic admiration of one's idealized self-image and attributes. And from the narcissism, another word emerges which is called narcissistic personality disorder. And those people who suffer from this can be called NARC, N-A-R-C. And estimated 1% of the population is affected by it. And this is on the rise, especially in America, in USA, and other European and Western countries. This NPD is on the rise, and many books, many records show that it is increasing up to 2%. It manifests themselves in a pathological form, so we can call it NPD. So this term comes from the Greek myth about Narcissus. As I told you, he's a young, handsome young Greek youth who, according to Ovid, rejected the desperate advances of the nymph Eco. This caused Narcissus to fall in love with his own reflection, as I said, in a pool of water, and he began to love himself, and he had his own fixation. For example, Havelock Ellis, who is an English psychologist, identified it as a disorder in 1898 and used the term Narcissus-like in reference to excessive masturbation, person becoming his or her own object. It's not true that narcissists fall in love with themselves, but with their image, which takes on an independent reality. Narcissism denotes investment in one's image as opposed to oneself. They love their image, not their real self. So a high level of narcissism becomes damaging. To certain degrees, there can be a healthy narcissism. Everybody is in love with himself. Everyone should and ought to love himself. It's good for self-estimation. And there are healthy levels also. And most of the people, they love themselves. But that's another thing. That's a normal thing. But it becomes, what are the features then that make a person branded narcissist or a high level of narcissism? When it goes into surfeit, when it goes into the excesses, and therefore excess of everything is bad, and therefore it has its own repercussions. A high level of narcissism is damaging in romantic relationship, familial, professional relationships. And this is characterized by, now what are the features of this? Number one, a grandiose sense of self-importance. And another key feature for such people is a lack of empathy for others. A need for excessive admiration, the belief that one is unique and deserving of a special treatment. If you encounter someone consistently exhibiting these behaviors, you are dealing with a narc. So within the normal limits, within the healthy limits, this is acceptable and everyone should love himself. But this is when it becomes a problem. The quality for this is, for example, let me tell you about King Lear. King Lear, in literature, is a narcissist character, as I think and as I have tried to interpret from the textual evidences, and we can substantiate with the textual lines and the dealings that he has with the characters that King Lear is a narcissist person. As you see that he has a great hunger for appreciation, excessive hunger for appreciation, and you can see all these qualities: leadership, authority, superiority, arrogance, self-absorption, self-admiration, exploitativeness, a sense of entitlement, people who appear too full of themselves and possesses a strong self-esteem. But this stronger self-esteem is at the root. There lies a deep insecurity and a surplus of self-esteem or insecurity, self-centeredness or self-absorbed. It encompasses a hunger for appreciation or admiration, as you see, a desire to be at the center of attention all the time. And this is an expectation of a special treatment reflecting perceived higher status. So the people are there in the many literary characters are there in literature also, as well as the people are around you. And actually, these, for example, these people have what I think is mismanaged emotions. They have the mismanaged emotions and misappropriated intellect, you can say, and mishandled relationships, and that's why they create problems for others also and become problematic. So let's see that it becomes a mental condition. King has a daughter. He has a power of admiration, and he wants to be appreciated. So what the problem is that he is asking each of his daughters to say that how much they love him. Cordelia answers, Regan and Goneril answers. Now, actually, the children of narcissistic parents or the children of narcissists, they are also problematic in the sense that they also become narcissist or sociopath or psychopath. In King Lear, who is a narcissist, his one child, Cordelia, becomes empath. She is an empath. And the other two daughters, one becomes the sociopath, and the last daughter, she becomes the psychopath. Various manipulative techniques. And you can see that they are the unfeeling characters. They don't have emotions. They lack emotions. And these narcissist people, as you can see, they don't perceive the other person as a human being. They see them as an object. They see them as an opportunity. And therefore, they are not capable of giving or receiving love. And they see them as an object or as an extension of self. So that's why you can see these three daughters. King Lear sees them as an extension of his own personality, and he suffers on account of that. And the kind of replies that the three daughters gave, how much they love, clearly proves that the one daughter, Cordelia, is empath, another is sociopath, and the other is psychopath, and the whole tragedy goes about. So this King Lear, at the broad level, can be said that it is a tragedy of narcissistic behavior, or it is MPD. And these people, narcissist people, they do not pay attention to, they don't pay attention to what they might handle otherwise in the normal situations. And therefore, he is quite unattentive. He pays no heed to the fool's meanderings who keeps reminding him of the mistakes that he has committed in ignoring his daughter Cordelia and favoring the other two daughters. And therefore, you can see that this narcissist, when they grow old, during their old age, they suffer a lot, and their life becomes very miserable. Their life becomes very miserable in the old age because they always want a support to hang on to. They want somebody to be dependent on, and therefore they are not strongly rooted in themselves, and therefore they try the support and sustenance of some other person for whom they manipulate and to whom they exploit. So you can see that King Lear, in this way, in the Act 3, storm scene, Act 3, and scene 2 or scene 3, you see that he becomes almost an insane person, almost a man. You can see all these qualities, and you can also analyze the text and see that how many features are met with. There's a particular scale for measuring. There is a scale which is called NPI, where you can measure the levels of narcissism. To a certain level, it can be healthy, but beyond that, there is a particular score, and there are two measuring scales. And the problem is that the narcissist person, for example, King Lear, when he doesn't get a proper response, expected response from Cordelia, then he suffers from the narcissistic injury. There's another word, narcissist injury. And because he suffers from narcissistic rage. So narcissistic injury, narcissistic rage, these are the two terms which are associated with this. Because they're offended, they take an offense at the slightest trivial things, and they take it personally. And they are not open to opposition, or they are not open to criticism, and any kind of criticism is taken as an attack on themselves, attack on their existence as such. So these people have an inflated sense of their own importance. So Cordelia, he is injured, he suffers a narcissistic wound or a narcissistic scar in terms of Cordelia's daughter, and then he goes to the first daughter to live with another daughter, Gungrel. Then he also suffers the narcissistic injury, and then he goes to the third daughter, and then he suffers another narcissistic injury because of being fixated with himself.
Right.
And hello, I'm audible. Hello.
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay.
Please continue.
So people have an inflated sense of their own importance, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and lack of empathy for others. So the people that who comes across, for example, Cordelia, she was a victim of narcissistic abuse. So the people that who live or spend their lifetime with a narcissist, they suffer from narcissistic abuse. And sometimes, these narcissistic people cannot change. They can change only in degree, but not in kind. So the empirical studies and the research and psychological studies, they reveal that these people are very hard to change. We thrive on hopes that one day they will change and one day they will improve and they will improve the lives of others, but they never change, and they may change only in the degree, not in the kind. So the person who lives with them, he suffers a lot, he or she suffers a lot. Suppose there's a narcissistic spouse, or a sibling, or a parents are narcissistic, or a close colleague, or a boss. So usually it's a sense of privilege. Narcissistic people have a high level sense of privilege, and also the sense of high esteem, vulnerable to the slight, and they are taking advantage of others, having an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of other people. They have no regard or concern with other people's feelings as such. So because of lack of empathy, the person who is close to them becomes a victim. And the victim also gets so used to it because of the manipulations and brainwashed by narcissism that it is difficult for victim to come out of that trap, because they hoover you back in, because narcissists have all the abilities to hoover you back in. And those people who are successful in coming out of their clutches, whether sibling, whether a spouse, or whether a boss, or whether a close friend, then that person is called narc survivor, that he is a narc survivor because he has suffered the abuse of the narcissism. So in this way, they feel special. Exploitation is very, they think they are better working smart, and they are extrovert, dominant. The other various protagonists in literature. For example, you can see that this occurs when narcissistic trait impairs the daily functioning. This causes friction in the relationship. So people with NPD are arrogant, self-centered, demanding, many of a disagreement. So navigating a relationship with a narcissist can be deeply frustrating and distressing. Narcissists exaggerate their own talents and accomplishments, downplaying those of others, despite power. Talented people draw from them. Many people, as you know, may be selfish, but being selfish is not a very bad thing, but it is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. And it's the sense of entitlement that makes the whole issue. And another key feature of narcissism is they can't have the self-restraints from the anger. And they lack empathy. They can feel it. They can fake any kind of emotions. They say they fake it, and they consider as a superior. So there is these people in this order. They manipulate, exploit others, damage their self-esteem, and you cannot control how you respond to them. So cutting ties with a narcissistic partner or a family member may be very difficult, but there have been many rehabilitation programs where you see that the solution doesn't come but unless and until you have to. So also arguing with a narcissist, any kind of communication, any kind of arguing with the narcissist leads nowhere, because they deliberately have mismanaged emotions, mishandled intellect, and the misappropriation of talent, and that's why they want the person to be attach to them, should hang on to them. So they need a narcissistic supply. Another term is narcissistic supply, because they need supply from the people. The supply maybe, for example, those celebrities are there, or big officials are there. Their supply may be good company, good car, good perks, good facilities, good servants. Other people have the power of the hunger for power, so they need that supply. Some people have hunger for appreciation and praise and validation. They want to get validated. They need validation at every step. And just like King Lear was getting the validation from his daughters, which he couldn't get ultimately. So that's why they in this way we can see that, and they try to look for the cues which are there in people whom they can dote on or whom they can hang on to for their narcissistic supply. So in this way they try to catch people who are empaths, people with full of empathy, and those who have INFJ personality, something like that. So in this way they take recourse to all kinds of things in order to. So what are the effects of narcissism? The person who is very close to narcissistic people, he suffers a narcissistic abuse because of naturally because of lack of empathy. The other partner suffers a lot, or the friend or a child or a parent, whosoever is in connection with the narcissistic person. So you have dysfunctional relationships, loneliness, divorce, temper tantrums, domestic violence, child abuse, and so on. So as I told you, the lack of empathy, need for validation, and therefore they take resort to manipulations, and sometimes they insist on having the best of everything. So trouble handling anything they perceive as criticism. So they become impatient, like King Lear, are angry when they don't receive special treatment or special answer, and they suffer from narcissistic injury, and they have interpersonal problems and easily feel slighted, and they react with rage or contempt. Rage can be mild rage, or it can be a passive aggression, or it can be a contempt, and they try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior. Having difficulty regulating emotions and behaviors also. So a narcissist would always put himself above others, and he does not recognize the needs of the others, as you see. And therefore, these are the major problems with that. So what they do when they are threatened, if you try to leave a narcissist, they start doing the love bombing. They will do the love bombing. They will say, oh, you have made my life different. I was no better than earlier, and this and that. The second quality of narcissist is they induce guilt. They make you guilt trip. And gaslighting is another manipulative techniques which they do. Gaslighting is, that is, they show you the altered perspective of the reality, and which will be discussed in the coming slides. And then narcissistic injury, and they can start a smear campaign against you, start throwing mud at you, or they can involve you in long legal battles or even long arguments, and they feel threatened when ignored, so they begin to go on that. They begin to exaggerate things. They begin to gain sympathy as a manipulative technique. They play a sympathy card as well, and they also use crisis technique, that this was a problem with me, this happened with me, and that is why. And as soon as you are replaced, and they go for the better narcissistic supply. Now, how do they harm you? One is a quick anger, hurrying, end up with a bad decision, and they lie about details. They make you guilt trip, and then they actually have different public appearances and private keep-up appearances. So they are very expert in that. And the smear campaign means they start throwing the mud at you, and they are very good at weaving a web of words and land of lies. They are very skilled in it, and then sometimes treat you with a silent treatment, and they are very touchy, very emotional at times, For themselves, they are very sensitive, but unconcerned with the feelings and others. So what are the key narc features which you can see in Tughlaq, which you can see in King Lear, which you can see in Claudius, means you can see in Hamlet also to some extent. It is not just the tragic flaw. It is not just the Oedipal theory or Electra theory or other Freud concepts. Even Freud also wrote an essay on narcissism, and there is a history that goes behind that. Freud was one of the first pioneers who contributed to the theory of narcissism. So mismanaged emotions, misappropriated intellect, world of make-believe and confusion, and manage emotions to their advantage. So they are predisposed to anger and perpetuate to presumptive anger to their benefits. They all these use. They live in a gaslit world. They live in a gaslit world and put others in a gaslighting. So what is this gaslighting? Gaslighting is, suppose you want to explain them the circumstances. These were the circumstances, real circumstances, that you behave like this. They would say, no, it was not this, but it was that. And they will show you the altered picture of the circumstances, totally a different perspective. And they will have their own arguments. Either they would see if you do something wrong to them, if Nog does something wrong to you, then he would come and explain, oh, it wasn't me, I didn't do it, I was not angry, but I was frustrated. So the way you think is not correct. It was me who stand by you in the times of difficulty. And they put obligatory sense. These are the minor examples. These are the minor examples of the narcissism, the gaslighting. But there can be bigger too, and there is an endless whirlpool of arguments and discussions and creating different contrived circumstances to support themselves. So they dote on others' insecurities. So it is the obsessive self-interest, self-centered goals, needs of constant attention and praise, which you can see in King Lear and Tughlaq, and even one known character. For example, the Arvind Adiga's character, who is the protagonist. From narcissist level, he moves on to the protagonist who becomes a sociopath and then who becomes a psychopath. Actually, the factors behind narcissist are genetic. There's a genetic origin, and you can see there is hereditary or environment and other cultural factors contributing too. So their attitudes become hardened. So there are two types of narcissists. One is grandiose, who are overt, and there are vulnerable narcissists, who are covert. For example, vulnerable are silent, quiet, reserved, and they have their own ways of winning things. So this grandiose variant is cluster B NPD, and it reflects self-importance, entitlement, aggression, and dominance. But for example, you have a boss in your office, and this boss is suppose grandiose. He is an overt narcissist. So small narcissist people who want to be associated with the big people or only with the big officials, they too have there too will be covert narcissists. They will attach themselves to the grandiose, overt narcissist. For example, one is the HOD, head of department, and there's another, his colleague. Then naturally, the other person will be made flying monkey. The grandiose one will make the other person as flying monkey, and this flying monkey, as a small narcissist, would cater to the needs of the grandiose narcissist, overt narcissist, just because doing so they gain power, entitlement, sense of importance, being different and separate and at a higher hierarchy from others. So overt narcissist would like to associate with the big people, and the grandiose, they try to become the big people themselves. So this is what is the various. So how when one narcissist deals with another one? You might have seen the film of Dilip Kumar and Raj Kumar where they are at daggers drawn. or you can see a big narcissist dealing with a small narcissist. So there are different human permutation and combinations that take place. Robert Ruskin, I think, for example, Kinglier's narcissism can be analyzed by the textual lines that he utters and the kind of tragedy or suffering that he undergoes and the psychological traits. And we can also measure the character. The time is too short to give you the textual illustrations from King Lear or Tughlaq or Arvind Adiga's, or for that matter, D.H. Lawrence, or from the other pieces of literature. So you can see there is a judge that whether he is covert or overt, and there are various subtypes of narcissists. And in this way, we won't talk about the various subtypes and subcategories, but inflated narcissist views, they always look at contrary to the reality. Exaggerated self-use and agitic, and they don't have lack of interest and concern for others. Now, this narcissistic supply, this term was given by Otto Fenichel in 1938, and he introduced the concept of narcissist supply into a psychoanalytical theory. And it describes a type of admiration, interpersonal support, or sustenance drawn by a narcissist. Because a narcissist would always want a narcissistic supply, without which he cannot survive. He is not strongly rooted in himself. So he needs to have these supplies in order to survive. And the person who lives with him or bears with him or her becomes a narc survivor. If he is able to free himself or herself from the clutches of that narc. So this is pathological conditions also, and this is how we can see. And another term is narcissistic rage and narcissistic injury. These were the terms given by Heinz Kohut in 1972. So I think there are certain textual lines which we can identify as narcissistic rage of King Lear, as he reacts when Cordelia replies, or as he reacts when another daughter throws him out of the house, or as he reacts when he is in the storm scene. You can see that narcissistic rage. And then you can see the injury that he suffers, narcissistic injury. Sigmund Freud, actually 1920s, used these terms: narcissistic injury, or narcissist wound to the ego, or narcissistic scar, or narcissistic blow. These are the terms. And the person who is meant to suffer along with the narcissist or a narc, he becomes a person of narcissistic abuse. So you can see the psychoanalysis. Sometimes the children suffer a lot under the narcissistic parents, and the children either become sociopath or psychopath, as the case may be. In most of the web series, OTT platform, the TV shows that are going, you can see that sociopath and psychopath protagonists are abounding in the world of web series or the movies that are being made at Hollywood and Bollywood. So self-culture, you can see. So the causes may be various causes, mostly genetic, neurobiological, and also the excessive parental pampering, and various other social causes are there. So they suffer from the relation difficulties, problem at work, or and then we can see judge a character in the concrete and objective terms, because there are various measuring scales where can you assess a character, because ultimately these characters and protagonists are the literary figures with whom the readers or with whom we identify ourselves, and they're also drawn from the real life like situations or the real life like characters. So such studies may help a lot. So I won't say much about the sociopath now, but sociopaths are made and psychopaths are born. So there are various such qualities, and only one key feature I will mention is that what is it that makes a sociopath? Of course, it is the lack of remorse, shame, or guilt. This is the key feature that you can identify a character or a person around you that who has a lack of remorse or a shame or a guilt, or who has a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy. These are some of the features which identify a sociopath. And most of the criminal characters, they are sociopaths, or the psychopaths are. Sociopaths are hot-blooded characters, and psychopaths are cold-blooded characters, you can see. This is how we can differentiate between these two. So there may be various psychological causes. It's very difficult to go into the diagnosis and to the roots, but we can identify such characters in literature and the people around us on whom we, on whom the living characters, the people around us, on whom we base our stories and do a creative writing. So such characters which are there in real life or they are in literature, we can measure them on the measuring scale, and therefore we can see that what are the characteristics that make them criminals, or the manipulators, or they become exploitators, or they become cheats. So these are the various things that can be seen into. So the checklist is, you can see that if you ask anyone, these are certain tests to judge or assess a person whether he is a narcissist or a sociopath or he is a psychopath. So shame, so hypersensitivity is another issue, another key feature. There are plenty of them, and some people, they are intrigued and they keep a wrong scoreboards, or they keep a scoreboard of what you did wrong to them, and they adhere to the past in gaslighting, or showing you the altered. They hang on to the past. They keep on misinterpreting the past with you, and that's why they make you a victim of narcissistic abuse. So sociopath and psychopath, there are certain thinner and thicker lines which can demarcate these. The power sucker, bullying, those who are the bullying people, those who bully, what is the psychological behind them, remorse, violence, or resist. So these are certain characteristics which we can see that the characters, literature is almost full of such characters, and literature is almost full of such characters where you can see the I think I should. There are so many things, but we can study Hamlet in the light of these narcissistic theories. King Lear is a very potential character, potential case in hand that we can see. D.H. Lawrence, Virtude Moral, and then Son Oren, and even in Morning Becomes Electra, you can see Lavinia and Christine, you can see. Usually the number of male narcissists are more in number than the female counterparts. But where female becomes a narcissist, she becomes even more dangerous. So we can identify these characters, narcissists, and how to deal with them and how to handle with them. So most of the tragedies, you can say, even Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, from the textual illustrations, you can evaluate that what are the features in her. Maybe the sense of entitlement is what are the key elements that bring about the tragedy. So we can't see just in terms of tragic flaw, but there's more than that, beyond that in tragic flaw, that we have to see what is it that brings tragedy in our lives and in Shakespearean characters, in literature. What is it that contributes to the tragedy, and how we can emancipate, and how with the understanding of literature, psychology, and psychoanalysis, we can handle the situation and save the world from tragedies taking place. So, with this, I'm thankful to Dr. Ghanshyam, to Dr. Jyoti Patil, the president of SPEL, and we have Secretary of SPEL with us. And today you have given me a chance for the most new members to come up to the platform. We keep talking here and there, but believe me, this was my maiden attempt to delve into this topic, so maybe I couldn't have done justice with this. So my sincere apologies. But I think there's more to be. I think this is how we can apply various and there are various other psychoanalytical theories as well, which we can apply to these characters and to the Dr. Murli Krishnan, and to Master of the Ceremony, Dr. Indrani Emma. I
Thank you.
It's nice meeting you here on this platform.
My pleasure too, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone, once again, sir. The various psychological characters on literature, on imperative writing in real life, and the difference which could be measured, and all those checklists to assess a person and psychopathy, and the differences and misinterpretation of past and present, which was presented, was in an excellent way, sir. The deliberation is highly appreciated. We can see that in the chat box too, sir. Thank you so much for enlightening us on this particular aspects of literary characters, where these characters are really present in our life too, sir. So probably we fail to judge those things, and through your talk, we have been able to identify these things. Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightening one. We have a few questions which has been asked, and Ananya Mishra has asked, how much role does existentialism and existential has played in the evolution of psychoanalysis as it emerged as a theory in postmodernism? Is a question posed by Ananya Mishra, sir.
And there have been many emerging trends during the 19th and 20th century, even the 21st century. Existentialism is a very vast area in itself. It's altogether a different domain. It's a very huge world in itself, existentialism. And as you can see that many authors have written on existentialism, the world of utopia, dystopia, and we have existentialism can be issued in 20th century literature. We have many authors. And the postmodernism is something, another very emerging and very various vague. I delivered a lecture on postmodernism along with Ghanshyam sir in one LTI conference, which was on postmodernism and interpreting the postmodern text, construction, deconstruction, and structuralism. And there are various vague aspects also, which are still to be defined by and supported by critical theories. There is a lot of scope to work in this area of postmodernism and existentialism, because existentialism, life and death and life, the meaning of existence, even all the women writers, even many writers who are writing on identity crisis, sense of alienation, loneliness, and various existentialist philosophies and even psychoanalytical theories are creeping into literature also. Literature is the only subject that deals with the human beings, their emotions, their feelings, their philosophy. Philosophy is only about the knowledge, abstract knowledge. Psychology is there, but all others are material sciences, as you can say. Medical science deals with only the medicines, engineering with the machines, law with the legal knowledge, but it is just the literature that deals with the human emotions and on where the subject matters are human beings. All other sciences and subjects that deal with the objects. So, in order to survive as a good human being, as I said, compassion or empathy is very important, and therefore we need to understand the existentialism. Identity crisis is also another big topic, and most of our students are doing research on identity crisis. So I think these are very broader areas, and there need to be platform. I think we need to have another seminars on existentialism and postmodernism to understand them fully well. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope Ananya Mishra has got an answer for us. Here we have another question, sir. Do psychoanalysis of waiting for Godot as any answer to existentialist crisis portrayed in it?
Yes. In this way, we can say that it is the existentialist issues. Actually, there is a difference between existentialism, existentialist, and existential. So, again, these issues have been emerging in literature about the identity crisis and the postmodern issues. But I think in the postmodern framework, we can review and we need to see in connection with the myths. We have to see connection with the myths, legendary mythology, and the psychological theories and the various aspects that can clarify these issues. Yes.
That's really nice, sir. Thank you so much. We have another question here. Smita Naik says that you mentioned about selfishness, narcissism, and selfishness the same. And if mishandled intellect and the difference between these two. So they want this to be enlightened. What is the difference between that selfishness, narcissism, and selfless? Are those the same, sir?
Sorry, as far as I'm trying to get the answer, is a selfish narcissism. Actually, self-centeredness and narcissist people are self-absorbed. And self-absorbed and they are self-centered to the heightened degree. We are all selfish in one way or the other way. We need to be selfish at times. But selflessness is found in the characters of empaths. Those people, empath. And they are more concerned with the well-being of the world, well-being of the others, giving space and room to the other person's needs. They cater to the needs of the other people, to the society. They have a sense of superiority for belonging to a group. They have a sense of entitlement for being in a group, or communal because the purpose is to achieve. But the real empath, selflessness, there have been various characters in literature as well. We can deal with separately on empath character in literature, those who are selfless, those who are, for example, Cordelia for that matter. She's an empath. She's attached with King Lear despite having been suffered from the narcissistic abuse and having been banished and thrown out of the kingdom and having got nothing in her hands. And ultimately she comes as a savior. These people are savior. And these people are selfless. At times they crucify themselves. At times they sacrifice their lives for the life of others, for the well-being of the society. And so I think all types of characters are there, but I hope it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Ophelia was an empath, yeah. Ophelia was an empath, you can say. Ophelia wasn't a narcissist lady, and she suffered the narcissistic abuse from Hamlet, because Hamlet, to a certain extent, even the ghost, we can interpret the ghost also, Hamlet's father, and then we can assess Gertrude also in these terms, and Claudius, and then we can form the degrees and types of like grandiose, like covert, like overt, like and so on. But Ophelia was an empath at times, because otherwise, what was her aim? Otherwise, what she had to do ultimately? She had nothing to do with all these people. But she felt abuse at the hands of her father Polonius, who used her, her own brother, and even Hamlet. And naturally, the result is that the death is also symbolical. The death is symbolical of her, the existence that was mitigated, that was done away with. So death here is not the simple death, she dies in body, but before she died in body, she had died emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, I think. So that death was also symbolic in graveyard scene that you see. And the grave diggers talking about existentialism and about the that that death is a great leveler. So
Yes, sir. There are two questions on Hamlet. One speaks about it that throughout the play, Hamlet is an underconfident guy. So how can he be considered narcissistic? The other question related to this is where can we interpret that Hamlet suffers from bipolar disorder? So both the questions are on Hamlet, sir. I would like to request you to kindly enlighten on this.
I'm still finding out the textual illustrations and the critical evidences to show that Hamlet's madness was feigned or real. We have a question in the examination most often being asked whether Hamlet's madness was real or feigned. And another aspect that there's a lot of psychoanalysis on Hamlet. Another question is that whether Hamlet is dilemma of Hamlet, to be or not to be, and in soliloquies if we try to judge his character. But if he at all is a narcissist, then he is not a grandiose narcissist. He is a reserved, shy, quiet, unassuming type of a narcissist, which comes in a covert. There are various subcategories of narcissists. Here I talked about only two. There are myriads of manifestations, and every narc is a case in study in himself or in itself, as you can say. So, narcissist, you can say that Hamlet, uh, he is a unassuming type, is a quiet, withdrawn type of covert type of narcissist, and the dilemmas that he has, the doubts and fears, he has many ifs and buts, delay that takes place, and the tragedy that it all brings about. He could have killed Claudius right in the beginning. He could have killed Claudius while he was kneeling down and praying, but ultimately the tragedy is set to is doomed. Tragedy is doomed finally. So we can say that Hamlet. Your one question is whether Hamlet was bipolar or not. Because of his madness, if we see that he was the way he is talking to Ophelia, the way he is talking all the time to his mother, and the various critics have ascribed various reasons to the psychoanalytical explanation, even the Oedipus complex. But I don't think the Oedipus complex theory very well fits into the character analysis of Hamlet. There are many more things which need to be looked into. So it is not just uh, the Oedipus factor alone. It is there, of course, but uh, because of the dilemmas, because of the struggle, he's struggling, unsure of himself, and therefore he's trying to pick courage. He's insecure. He wants supply from others till he becomes strongly rooted in himself. So he's changing in degree. So his narcissism may be to certain an extent healthy one. And there are qualities of empath in him also. So we have to see that just he has lost the balance and he is torn between two worlds, empath and narcissist. So there is a fusion, there is an amalgamation. And I think through the textual illustrations, I'm still going into trying to write a research paper on King Lear and his three daughters and the tragedy of suffering that all goes. And the tragic flaw, how far tragic flaw is responsible, whether it is a tragic flaw or it is something, the sense of privilege, sense of entitlement, or the narcissism that comes with being his king. So most of the IS officer, bureaucrats, ministers, they have sense of privilege. And look at their sons and daughters. Leave aside, they may not have all the similar kind of children, but in some cases, the sons of underworld, big tycoons, see what shape usually they take in society, and what all these platforms are depicting on OTT platforms, as you can see them. Yes.
So thank you so much, sir. Your presentation has actually stirred up many emotions over here because too many questions are flowing into the chat box, sir. And there are last two questions which I want you know, to kindly
Dr.
clarify.
Indrani,
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Indrani,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
we can send these questions to Dr. Ashok Sachdeva. We are running
Okay,
out of
sir.
time,
Okay, sir.
right? So we can
Okay.
send these questions to Dr. Ashok Sachdeva, and I'm sure he'll not hesitate to answer these questions at all.
Yes, sir.
So on behalf of Dr. Ashok Sachdeva, I request you to send these questions to me so that I can send it to Dr. Sachdeva. And the people, those who want the answer to these questions, can put their email ID in the chat box. Now you can invite the chairperson for his remarks.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of ISPEL, I extend a profound gratitude to the speaker of the day today. Thank you very much, sir. So now we'll move on to another very important person here, the chairperson of for this particular webinar, Dr. Murli Krishnan TR. Sir, warm welcome to you to this webinar. And Sir is an assistant professor and head in the Department of English in MEA's Asmabi College, Kodungalur. He was he has put in almost 25 years of service in various aided colleges under Muslim Educational Society, and he is Broad's research supervisor too. Along with this, he is a member of the editorial reviewer panel, and he has been a resource person to many national seminars. And he is a member of right now he is a member of Board of Studies in PG in MG University at Calicut University in UG. For a period of 11 years, Sir has been a NAC and IQAC coordinator for the institution for 2 successful accreditations. Sir has published many articles, and he has edited volumes of books, 24 articles and research journals, and 9 articles in e-journals. 7 articles in seminars and conferences proceedings. Some, your wide credential has no words to explain in this particular platform. And on behalf of ISPEL, I extend a warm welcome to you, sir. And now the platform is open to you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
It's a great honor to chair this particular session, or being a chairperson to this particular section, where we have a great critic as well as a scholar like Dr. Ashok Sachdeva is presenting. Let me also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Kanshyam and Dr. Jyoti Patil, two very important people in ISPEL, and of course you are also there as the master of the entire program. Now, regarding the kind of session that we had today, I should say that the number of questions that we have in the chat box, that itself is a clear indication of how far people have got enrolled into this particular topic. Now, when the title was announced, we had a feeling that it is going to be moving through a predictable routine of character analysis. And naturally, of course, psychology is a subject that creates, I should say, a lot of interest among people. And we have studied, in our literature, in the background of literature, starting from the early days, or the classical days, we should say, like from the days of Aristotle, we have heard of purgation, catharsis, starting from 4th century BC. Now, the idea of how the mind functions, or the way that human behaves, that is a very interesting concept. People are always thinking about that. And we have references to this kind of the functioning, or the way in which mind behaves indirectly or directly in the writings of Philip Sidney. We have Coleridge, Wordsworth, Shelley, in their literature kind of literary kind of an analysis. I think so I should say, with the presence of, or the arrival of Freud, you have suddenly we have a new dimension coming up with the invention of this concept of what we call as the id, the ego and the superego, suddenly people started thinking in terms of like how far people can go forward for the analysis of like or they can take interest in psychology. And with the further development in terms of what we call as the imaginary, symbolic, and real, contributed by Lacan, we have further kind of analysis, or it opened further into the very notion of what we call as language coming into play in the analysis of text. It may not be at the level of the word or the printed word. Even a figure or a symbol can also be interpreted. That is why the very famous example of the train coming or almost approaching the station, where in which the people who are sitting on both sides, the sister and the boy, they read two different things from the toilet boot. That is a very common example. I didn't even explain on that. But every time whenever we go to a classroom where we deal with psychology, this idea of whether the psychologists are reading the text or are we learning psychology to deal with text, that kind of psychology basis literature, or the psychological schools and literary schools. Now, how can we balance this? This kind of question generally comes up. And whenever we interpret text, are we reading through the mind of the reader, or are we approaching the text as something real, wherein which we go into the characters, or are we interpreting from the point of view of the author, whether the problem is with the author or whether the problem is with the character? Now, this kind of analysis is a common thing that we always take up whenever we discuss, say, the issue of psychology in text. So what I have just suggested is a kind of a basic problem that we generally come into when we approach, especially going to a classroom, when we approach students, we have that. But today I think we have got a surprise with the kind of interpretation, what we call as the analysis in terms of narcissism, and that too referring to one or two very important texts. For example, King Lear, or maybe references to Hamlet, references to D.H. Lawrence, references to Arvind Adiga. Now suddenly, I should say, Dr. Ashok Sachdeva has opened up a new kind of a thing, like, or has successfully led us into a new kind of a dimension, where in which we have that. We have people around like that, not only just characters. We see people around with this kind of a fixation around. Now, even celebrities have that. Now, even parents have that. So, whenever we talk about King Lear, we have the problem of King Lear is always the problem of what we call as the people around us. Why do we have old age homes now around? We have the three daughters everywhere, like Honorable Regan and Cordelia. They are all around, still there. Now, I'm not talking about the visionary kind of writing of Shakespeare. I'm talking about the reality of life. So, what I want to drive it is, he has spoken from a different angle, wherein which the idea of the rage, the idea of injury, the idea of supply. I'm talking about narcissism. The idea of blow and wound. Now, these are all very relevant things which are happening. And when Dr. Sachdeva was referring to Hamlet, I was thinking about Horatio. Horatio is a kind of a supply. He tried to, from the beginning till the end, and he always we see him as an alter ego. That was the previous definition. Kind of a mirror image of Hamlet, wherein which whatever Hamlet is trying to project, we have an alternative idea about Denmark or other things through kind of the presence of Horatio. And recently, I read an article wherein which even Horatio can be seen as a villain. There is a plan that is happening between the prince who comes in the end and Horatio, wherein which the ghost was actually a mechanization on the part of Horatio, by which he can conquer Denmark indirectly, by which he can create a trouble within the family. That is one possible kind of an interpretation. Of course, you can challenge me, but still, Hamlet has been a much studied text. So, what I would suggest is, in terms of King Lear or whatever Dr. Sachdeva has said, in terms of Hamlet, we have what we call as ample evidences where we have this kind of narcissistic kind of narratives, at least at the micro level or maybe in the major level. So there are micro narratives happening around. Even in politics, it is happening. So That way, I should say this today's evening has been quite fruitful because of this kind of revelation, I should say, on the part of Dr. Sachdeva by telling us or informing us that please read from this particular angle so that you never miss the information that is hidden. So that is, as I said at the earlier, at the beginning of this particular session, it is actually a reading of a text by which we go into the, not from the author's perspective, with the social reality that we are living now, or the social reality that we are now facing. So thank you, I should say, thank you, Dr. Ashok Sachdev. It was a brilliant kind of a session. I'm happy to chair this session, and I was really fortunate, I should say that. And we don't have time. That is why I'm not prolonging further based on what we have got as an arrow, because it can be a kind of a repetition also. So thank you, iSpell. Thank you, everyone there. I congratulate the people in the dais, or what we call as the session, as well as the people who are behind this particular session. So we are not something like front and behind. We are always together. So we move together, we grow together, we always make ourselves fruitful. Our destination is not near but far, where which success is always there for us in future. So thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Jyoti Patil. Thank you, Dr. Sachdeva. So now, I think.
Thanks for the words of encouragement, Dr. Krishnan. You have spoke.
And we have something to say about as a concluding.
You have been kind enough, and thanks for your kind words and words of encouragement.
Thank you so much, sir. It was wonderful to listen to you too. Is there any other questions or any other things to be discussed over here? Because we are running short of time, but I personally feel being a part of this iSpell group, it gives me shiver to be amidst this esteemed academicians and scholars and professors, research scholars, and people who are interested on literary aspects. It is not that we have only one particular aspect to see life as, okay? We are those people who actually see life in a wider sense, and it is worth giving a Sunday to listen to such great people and just great talks. And personally, I extend my heartfelt gratitude for this particular group and to Dr. Ghanshyam sir. On this behalf of this iSpell, I take immense pleasure to extend profound gratitude to the guest of the day, Dr. Ashok Sachdev sir. So it was indeed wonderful to listen to your excellent deliberation, and yes, it has enlightened all the participants over here. We have quite a good number, the highest number of participants who have participated or who have been a part of this on live YouTube too, sir. So thank you so much, sir, for giving amidst all your busy schedule, you have given your time to enlighten us and give more information about the topic, and it is justfully done, sir. Thank you so much. And along with this, I would like to thank the chairperson too for this, for giving a wonderful talk, Murli Krishnan sir. It was wonderful listening to you too. I thank Dr. Shamata Chowdhury, Executive Member of iSpell, ma'am. It is always nice. I have been continuously attending all the webinars hosted from iSpell group, and I have seen how active and enthusiastic you are in playing an important role to add on color to iSpell group, ma'am. Thank you so much. Dr. Shaminaz, ma'am, I extend a profound gratitude even to you for taking that initiative to reach out to many people on live on Facebook. Thank you so much, ma'am. And Mr. Pramod Denglin for preparing the flyer and all the certificates. Thank you so much. But yet, and this is your constant support which has made us to give the best for the interested people. Thank you so much. And my personal gratitude for giving this platform to and an opportunity to extend my service to. I wish to be a part of it as I've rendered many such services. Dr. Ghanshyam sir, thank you so much for giving this great opportunity to be amidst all these great people. I really feel blessed that being an English professor, I have been a part of this and definitely all my services would be there throughout till ISPEL is there, till these elevating interest of the learned people. We are always there, sir. So hope this will continue even in future also. So, sir, now I thank all the participants.
Dr. Indranee, you have to present the
Yes,
certificates.
sir. Yes, sir. And now over to Dr. Gansham sir for a further important thing which has to be executed now, sir. Over to Gansham sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Indranee. Thank on the platform of iSpell, and somehow or the other, the opportunity came to us in the form of your presence on psychoanalysis. It was really wonderful, and you have opened new avenues for researchers to follow on psychoanalysis. So this is a small token from iSpell to the Vice President of iSpell, Dr. Ashok Sachdeva. I hope you can see your certificate, sir. Hello?
Thank you so much for the certificate.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thanks a
I'm
lot.
glad to see the certificate. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, it's a pleasure always to listen to my very dear friend, Dr. Murali Krishnan, who is associated with us right from the beginning. And with him, my association is quite a long one. And indeed, it's a pleasure to listen to him all the time. And I'm really thankful to him for presenting his views on the psychoanalysis. This certificate goes to the Reverend Chairperson of today's event, Dr. Murali Krishnan TR. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So indeed, it's a pleasure to introduce Dr. Indranee, who hails from Mahajanas College, not Maharaja's College. I told Maharaja's College, she is from Mahajanas. So she wanted to switch over from Maharaja to Mahajana. So she wanted to be the identity of people. So this certificate goes to the Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Indranee, for rowing the boat to the destination. Thanks a lot for being there. Thanks a lot to each and everyone, those who have witnessed this grand event of iSpell. And on Facebook, we have 161 people viewing this right now. So indeed, the credit goes to Dr. Shemanas for bringing it on live on Facebook, and also to Dr. Shamta Chaudhary for recording it and being there all the time for iSpell, and even Pramod Dhengle, what Dr. Indranee told. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's a pleasure. A nice Sunday. Keep safe, keep healthy, and be in touch with all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ghanshyam. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Master of the Ceremony, Chairperson Murali Krishnan, sir.
Wonderful being along with you also. Thank you so much.
Thanks for showing me the face of the narcissist in the beginning, and the narcissist is ending at the end also.